It happened so fast, Naomi Harris could barely catch her breath. One moment she was browsing for a bracelet for her niece. The next, she was being called a thief, cutting voices, rough hands. Then the blow. Officer Ethan Cole slammed her against the glass wall. The cold surface seared her cheek as metal cuffs closed around her wrists. The boutique fell silent. To the witnesses, she was just another black woman pinned and humiliated in a mall. To Cole, she was another name to add to his record, another arrest to flex his authority. 20 years on the force. A woman who carried more authority in her pocket than all of them combined. And soon, that mistake would come crashing down. The Maple View Mall's glass ceiling reflected the afternoon sun, sending dazzling beams across shiny marble floors. Weekend noise echoed in the wide halls as shoppers moved in and out of stores. Among them strolled Naomi Harris, purse tight at her side, moving with subtle resolve. She was just another customer to most eyes. But not to the two men watching from the mezzanine. Security guards Kyle Mercer and Bradley Horn exchanged a look. Bradley, taller by a few inches, already had his hand on his radio. Kyle did the same, reluctantly, his eyes flicking toward Naomi with uncertainty. They fell into step, following her through the crowd. Naomi didn't need to turn to sense them. 2 decades in law enforcement had sharpened instincts she couldn't switch off. She was here for something simpler, birthday gift for her niece Jasmine. After a week of endless reports and staff meetings at the precinct, this errand was meant to be refreshing, normal. Naomi stopped in front of a jewelry boutique, the window glittering with delicate silver charms. In the reflection of the glass, she saw Bradley lip-syncing into his radio. Black female, black leather handbag, black sweater, eyes following on, her jaw tightened. She had been followed before, dismissed as suspicious before she'd even opened her mouth. It wasn't new, but the sting never dulled. She exhaled slowly, refusing to let them ruin her day. Inside the boutique, the air smelled of vanilla, undercut by the hum of soft jazz. Behind the counter stood Cheryl Grant, the manager. Her smile was tight, her eyes narrowed the moment Naomi stepped inside. "Can I help you?" Cheryl's tone carried less warmth than warning. "Just browsing." "Thanks," Naomi said evenly, walking toward the bracelet display. But Cheryl followed every movement, eyes darting to the purse at Naomi's hip, as if it were a threat. Naomi leaned closer to the glass case, admiring a silver charm bracelet with a small heart-shaped locket. Yes. Jasmine would love it. She reached for her wallet when Cheryl's sharp voice cut through the soft jazz. "Excuse me, ma'am," Cheryl said, stepping out from behind the counter. "I need to check your bag." Naomi blinked. "I haven't even bought anything yet." Cheryl's lips curled into a thin line. "A customer just reported you slipping something into your purse." Heads turned. 2 shoppers froze mid-step, their eyes darting between Naomi and the manager. Naomi felt heat rise in her chest, not of guilt, but of anger, sharp and suffocating. "That's impossible," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "Touched nothing, except this bracelet." Bradley and Kyle entered the store then, their black uniforms giving them instant authority. Bradley stepped forward, hand resting on his duty belt. "Ma'am, we've had multiple reports. We'll need to look inside your bag." Naomi stood taller. "Reports from who? Her?" She gestured toward Cheryl, who crossed her arms in satisfaction. The situation was no accident. This was profiling, clean, textbook, and ugly. "Look, lady." Bradley's voice grew louder, commanding the whole store's attention. "You can cooperate or we'll have to escalate." Before Naomi could respond, a heavier step entered the boutique. Officer Ethan Cole. His reputation preceded him, arrogant, quick-tempered, and reckless with his badge. "What's going on here?" Cole barked. Bradley was quick to answer. "Possible shoplifter, black female, refusing bag inspection." Cole's gaze locked on Naomi with a smirk that made her skin crawl. "Refusing, huh? Well, we'll see about that." He didn't ask for her name, didn't ask for an explanation. He grabbed her arm. Naomi's instinct screamed to push back, to remind him exactly who he was laying hands on. But she froze, trying not to escalate. "Officer, you're making a mistake." Cole's grip tightened. That's what they all say in seconds. Naomi was shoved against the glass wall. Shoppers gasped as her purse fell to the floor. Cole wrenched her arms behind her back, snapping cold handcuffs around her wrists. Got ourselves a thief, Cole sneered, loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. Humiliation burned hotter than the pain in her shoulders. She looked at her reflection in the glass cuffed, restrained, made small in front of strangers. But deep inside, another fire sparked. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The crowd outside the boutique thickened as Officer Cole dragged Naomi through the doorway. Her wrists locked tightly behind her. Phones came out. Flashes blinked, and whispers spread like wildfire. Did you see? She tried to steal jewelry. Another thief caught. Serves her right. Each murmur stabbed at Naomi, twisting truth into lies before she could utter a word. She kept her chin high, though refusing to give Cole the satisfaction of seeing her break. Bradley and Kyle followed close behind, carrying her purse as if it were evidence from a crime scene. Cheryl stood in the doorway, arms folded, smirking like she had orchestrated the entire spectacle. "This is absurd," Naomi said, her voice clear and sharp, cutting through the whispers. "Check the cameras. You'll see I didn't take anything," Cole scoffed. "Save it for the report. Cameras don't lie, but people like you always do." The words hit like a slap, drenched in venom. He shoved her toward the patrol car parked outside. Inside the vehicle, Naomi stared out at the gathering crowd. She could see a little girl clutching her mother's hand, eyes wide with confusion. Naomi thought of Jasmine in that instant, and her chest tightened. What if her daughter saw her like this, shackled, degraded, treated as a criminal? Cole slammed the door shut, cutting her off from the world. But inside, Naomi's resolve crystallized. She wasn't just fighting for herself now. She was fighting for every innocent person dragged through humiliation because of someone else's prejudice. At the precinct, the ordeal worsened. Cole paraded her through the lobby, loud enough for every officer in earshot. Caught this one red-handed. Thought she could outsmart us. Naomi met the stares with silence. Her training had taught her one thing. Sometimes, restraint carried more power than rage. They sat her in a cold interrogation room, cuffs biting into her wrists. Cole leaned across the table, smug and unyielding.
"Ow.
You're going to tell me exactly what you took, or things are going to get real hard for you." Naomi's eyes narrowed. "You took nothing. And when the truth comes out, Officer Cole, you'll regret every second of this circus you staged." Her words carried no fear, only quiet certainty. For the first time, Cole's smirk faltered. This wasn't over. It was only beginning. The chill of the interrogation room clung to Naomi's skin as if the walls themselves were closing in. Officer Cole paced like a predator circling prey, each step echoing against the concrete floor. "You think keeping quiet helps you?" he sneered. "All it does is make you look guilty." Naomi lifted her head, her gaze steady. "The only guilty party here is you. You assaulted me without cause. You paraded me in front of hundreds of people. And you refused to check the very cameras that could prove my innocence." Cole slammed his fist onto the metal table. "Watch your mouth." Naomi didn't flinch. Years in uniform had taught her how to stare down arrogance draped in authority. She let the silence hang, the sound of his heavy breathing filling the room. The door opened suddenly. Sergeant Marcus O'Neill stepped inside. His presence filled the room instantly, his broad frame and calm authority, a sharp contrast to Cole's reckless bluster. He held a tablet in one hand, its screen glowing.
"Cole,"
Marcus said flatly. A word. Cole straightened, nervousness flickering across his face. "Sarge, I was just save it," Marcus cut in. He tapped the screen, and the frozen image of Naomi inside the boutique appeared. The footage showed her admiring the bracelet, nothing more. No theft. No suspicious movement, just a woman shopping. Cole's jaw tightened. That's not the whole story. Marcus's eyes hardened. It's the only story that matters. Cameras don't lie, remember? The silence was deafening. Naomi sat still, her expression unreadable, though a fire flickered behind her eyes. "Uncuff her now," Marcus ordered. Cole hesitated, his pride warring with obedience. "But now," Marcus barked. His tone carried the weight of finality, the kind only a seasoned leader could command. Reluctantly, Cole reached for his keys and unlocked the cuffs. The sharp click of metal releasing echoed like a gavel's strike. Naomi rubbed her wrists, the red imprints standing as evidence of her humiliation. Marcus turned to her, his voice quieter now. "Captain Harris, I apologize. I should never have let this get this far." The room froze. Cole's eyes widened. "Captain." Naomi stood, her full stature commanding the space. Her voice was low, steady, and unyielding. "Yes, Captain Naomi Harris. 20 years on the force, and you just dragged your commanding officer through the mall like a criminal." Cole's face drained of color. The smugness that had carried him this far evaporated in an instant. The balance of power had shifted, and Cole knew it. Outside the boutique, the crowd had swelled to a small sea of onlookers, all phones raised, recording every second. The hum of murmurs and camera clicks filled the air. Some shoppers whispered in disbelief, others gasped audibly. Naomi stepped out, her posture unshaken, wrists still faintly red from the cuffs. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of authority, "what you just witnessed was not justice. It was harassment. It was racial profiling. And it is unacceptable." A ripple of applause swept through the crowd, growing louder as more people realized the gravity of the situation. Ethan Cole's swagger had vanished. He fumbled with his radio, trying to regain control. "Everyone, disperse. Move along," shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the rising chorus of outrage. Sergeant Marcus O'Neill moved through the crowd like a tide, commanding respect without a word. His eyes met Naomi's, and she gave a subtle nod. Together, they began to restore order, while the crowd's energy shifted firmly against Cole. Mall security attempted to intervene, but the videos already circulating on social media had painted a clear picture. The narrative was undeniable. A decorated captain was publicly humiliated by an officer abusing his authority. News crews arrived, drawn by the spectacle, capturing the entire confrontation. Reporters spoke into microphones, citing witnesses and showing footage of Naomi being pinned and handcuffed. The story went viral within minutes. Back inside, Cheryl, the boutique manager, tried to escape unnoticed, but dozens of cameras had caught her reactions. Bradley and Kyle, once brimming with confidence, now stood frozen, their complicity on display for all to see. City officials quickly responded. Within hours, statements were released. Ethan Cole was suspended without pay, pending investigation. Bradley and Kyle were terminated. Cheryl was fired, and Mapleview Mall faced public scrutiny for allowing racial profiling to occur within its premises. Naomi, her badge now proudly visible, addressed the crowd once more. "Let this be a lesson not just for them, but for all of us. Authority is not a weapon. Power is not a tool to humiliate. Justice is our responsibility. And silence in the face of wrongdoing is never acceptable." The crowd erupted in applause again, this time in solidarity with her. Phones captured the moment in high definition, every frame a testament to accountability. The air was electric, not just with anger, but with hope that wrongdoing could be confronted and corrected. Even in the aftermath, Naomi's poise never wavered. She had turned a moment meant to demean her into a powerful demonstration of courage, resilience, and justice. Her story was now more than a viral clip, it became a rallying cry for fairness, equality, and the unflinching pursuit of truth. The aftermath of the mall incident rippled far beyond Mapleview Mall. Social media erupted with Naomi Harris's story. Videos of her arrest and defiance circulating across platforms, hashtags demanding justice trended nationally. People shared their outrage, their support, and their own stories of harassment. Naomi became a symbol not just for law enforcement accountability, but for everyday courage against systemic bias. At the precinct, Naomi's colleagues greeted her with admiration. Officers who had witnessed her poise in action knew that her authority wasn't just in the badge, it was in the integrity she carried every day. Sergeant Marcus O'Neill personally commended her. "You handled yourself with a level of professionalism that even the best of us strive for," he said. Naomi only nodded, thinking of the lesson this day would teach those who thought they could misuse power. Meanwhile, the mall's management scrambled to respond. Press releases and apologies flooded the media, but the public scrutiny was relentless. Investigations into security protocols and racial profiling policies were launched citywide. Mapleview Mall became a case study in corporate accountability, a reminder that unchecked authority in private spaces could no longer be tolerated. However, refused to let the incident define her. She met with community leaders advocating for training and oversight for security staff and retail employees. She spoke at panels about racial profiling, sharing her personal experience while highlighting systemic issues that often went unnoticed. Schools, civic organizations, and local media invited her to speak, ensuring the story reached every corner of the city. Even in quiet moments, Naomi reflected on how fragile justice could feel. One wrong assumption, one misuse of power, and her life could have been irreparably harmed. Yet she had turned that moment into leverage for real change. And she reminded herself and others that vigilance, courage, and speaking out were essential in dismantling bias and abuse. The mall incident also inspired citizens beyond law enforcement. Community groups formed, emphasizing that accountability wasn't only the responsibility of police officers, but everyone who witnessed injustice. Naomi's calm defiance had sparked a chain reaction, powering ordinary people to challenge authority, respectfully but firmly. In the weeks that followed, Naomi Harris's reputation as a leader strengthened. Her courage was a clarion call for fairness, integrity, and resilience. She became a living example of how one person, armed with truth and unwavering resolve, could confront systemic wrongs and inspire an entire city to follow suit. Officer Ethan Cole's suspension quickly became a media sensation. News outlets dissected every moment of the mall incident, replaying videos of his overreach and Naomi's composed defiance. Public pressure mounted. Social media users, activists, and community leaders demanded accountability not just for Ethan, but for the culture that allowed such behavior to occur. Inside the precinct, Ethan faced a disciplinary hearing. His colleagues watched in quiet disbelief as the footage played in full. The commanding officers highlighted his misuse of authority, the racial profiling, and the blatant disregard for a fellow officer's rights. Ethan's defense crumbled under the weight of evidence and public outrage. For years, he had relied on intimidation and unchecked power. But now, with the entire city watching, that strategy failed him entirely. Meanwhile, Naomi continued her mission, turning the incident into a platform for advocacy. She worked with city officials to implement mandatory training on racial bias and proper conduct for both law enforcement and private security personnel. Workshops were held in schools and community centers, teaching young people how to recognize profiling and assert their rights responsibly. Naomi's influence extended beyond the badge. She became a mentor to citizens and officers alike, demonstrating that courage paired with discipline could effect real change. At Mapleview Mall, management faced severe consequences. Security contracts were reviewed, and Bradley and Kyle were permanently removed from service. Cheryl, the boutique manager, was dismissed, and the company launched an internal investigation into discriminatory practices. The city mandated oversight for all major retail establishments, ensuring that no customer would face the kind of humiliation Naomi endured. The public response was overwhelming. Community rallies, petitions, and media campaigns amplified Naomi's story, transforming her from a local hero into a symbol of justice and accountability. Students wrote essays, journalists penned op-eds, and ordinary citizens shared personal experiences of discrimination, inspired to take a stand. Naomi's calm authority reminded everyone that one person's voice could ignite systemic change. As the weeks turned into months, Naomi's influence continued to grow. She balanced her responsibilities as a captain with her advocacy work, proving that leadership extended beyond enforcement. It included education, mentorship, and public engagement. The incident, once a moment of personal attack, became a catalyst for citywide reform and a lesson in resilience. Through it all, Naomi Harris remained composed. She never sought fame or recognition. Her focus was justice, integrity, and the unwavering belief that standing up for what's right could reshape a community. Her story became a testament. One person, armed with courage, could challenge prejudice, inspire change, and ensure that accountability was more than just a word, it was a reality. Months after the Mapleview Mall incident, the city began to feel the long-term effects of Naomi Harris's actions. Police departments rolled out new training programs on implicit bias and procedural integrity, influenced directly by the widespread media coverage of the case. Naomi was invited to speak at conferences, schools, and community forums, her story becoming a blueprint for ethical leadership in law enforcement. Ethan Cole, facing mounting legal and professional consequences, struggled with the fallout. He was suspended indefinitely, his reputation irreparably damaged. Legal proceedings highlighted the abuse of authority he had engaged in, and he faced civil lawsuits from the city and citizens who felt unsafe under officers like him. Bradley and Kyle remained unemployed, a constant reminder of the accountability that Naomi's courage demanded. Cheryl's career in retail was over, her actions documented in widely circulated reports on racial discrimination. Meanwhile, Naomi found personal closure in her victory. The bracelet she had purchased for her niece, Jasmine, symbolized more than a birthday gift. It represented the resilience, patience, and unwavering discipline that had carried her through the ordeal. Jasmine, delighted by the butterfly charm, became an emblem of hope. The idea that small, meaningful actions could shine even amid injustice. Naomi's colleagues in the precinct recognized the profound impact she had made. Officers who once doubted the power of speaking up saw firsthand how one person's courage could ripple through an entire department, setting higher standards of accountability and professionalism. The precinct became a model for others in the region, demonstrating that integrity, discipline, and moral courage were just as crucial as enforcement skills. The city itself felt the change. Citizens reported improved interactions with both law enforcement and security personnel. Local businesses, under city oversight, adopted strict anti-profiling policies. Community workshops flourished, helping residents understand their rights and how to navigate encounters where bias might surface. Naomi's actions created a culture where accountability was expected and celebrated, not feared. Through it all, Naomi remained grounded. She continued her daily routines, her responsibilities at the precinct, and her advocacy work, but she carried herself with a quiet pride. She had turned what could have been a moment of personal humiliation into a citywide movement for justice. Her story reminded everyone watching that courage wasn't about seeking confrontation, it was about standing firm in truth, protecting the vulnerable, and demanding that integrity triumph over prejudice. And as the sun set over Maple View Mall one evening, Naomi walked past the boutique without a backward glance. The world had changed in ways small and large, thanks to one woman's resolve. She had proven that justice isn't given, it's earned, defended, and lived every day. Years later, Naomi Harris's story had become part of local lore and national discourse. Schools included discussions about her courage in civics and social studies classes. Police academies cited her actions as a case study in ethics, integrity, and the responsibility that comes with authority. Her experience was no longer just a personal victory, it had become a blueprint for systemic change. Naomi continued to serve as captain, mentoring young officers and teaching them that the badge they wore represented not power over others, but service to the community. Her leadership style, firm, principled, and compassionate, set a standard that inspired colleagues and civilians alike. She often reminded them that discipline, integrity, and moral courage mattered more than reputation or fear. On quiet evenings, Naomi would reflect on that day in the Maple View Mall. The bracelet for Jasmine had been a simple gesture, but it had become a symbol of resilience, patience, and the power of standing up to injustice. It reminded her that even small actions, choosing to speak the truth, refusing to stay silent, insisting on accountability, could cascade into monumental change. The mall itself changed as well. Policies were rewritten, security staff trained on anti-profiling measures, and corporate oversight increased. Vendors and employees learned that unchecked bias would not go unnoticed, and that the public, armed with accountability and technology, could hold power to task. Naomi's presence in the story had altered an entire environment. Her personal life flourished too. Jasmine grew up hearing about her mother's courage and the importance of standing firm in the face of unfairness. Naomi's example instilled values that transcended her professional accomplishments, shaping the next generation's understanding of justice and integrity. Looking back, Naomi understood the profound truth that had guided her through decades of service. Courage was not loud or brash, which was consistent, disciplined, and principled. Standing up in the moment, even when faced with force and prejudice, was the act that defined her legacy. She had turned humiliation into empowerment, bias into education, and confrontation into lasting societal change. Naomi Harris, captain, mentor, and advocate, proved that one individual's resolve could ignite reform, protect the innocent, and inspire generations. The story of that day in the mall and the justice that followed would remain a testament to resilience, truth, and the unwavering pursuit of fairness. And as she walked past the streets, offices, and schools shaped by her courage, Naomi knew the fight against injustice was never finished, but it was always worth it.